Okay.
And I want to introduce to the group the colleague who willingly stepped up to do this. I really want to learn about this whole thing. So, yours.
Okay. Um, and so I was given the topic of accessing and navigating the UC library. And I want to acknowledge my co-author on this, Natalie Ramos. She is she just graduated with her bachelor's degree in human development in December, and she's been working in my lab for a while, working on growth mindset intervention. And I'm wanted to make sure to acknowledge her because she helped me also prepare resources for ages and stages for the new staff orientation last week. And after she did that, she said, I want the job of the people who are receiving this information. And so I told her I would give her a shout out because I thought she did a great job with this, and that maybe someday she would be applying for a community education specialist in your counties. So that's why I'm putting her name out there. When I asked her, I gave her this title and gave her some things that I wanted to make sure that were covered. And she made an appointment with the librarian to like get more information. And so she was a very big go-getter for it. Okay, so now on to the topics. So let's see, there we go. Okay, so the objectives: understand how to navigate through UC Davis Online Library, resources on how to conduct basic literature review searches, how to access documents like journal articles, peer-reviewed articles from Google Scholar, and using the VPN. So our library system has a virtual network that will, when you go to websites, will allow you to look like you're coming from UC Davis to give you more access to material. So I'll go into more detail about that. And I have added an extra piece, which is to go through the What Works Clearinghouse organization, just to let you know what's there in case you're not familiar with it. It's an amazing resource. Okay. So navigating UC Davis, this is the example I'll use is PsycInfo database. All of this will also translate into the ERIC database, which is the, so PsycInfo is the APA, American Psychological Association database. So it's all the psychological research. ERIC is the Department of Ed database. I find a lot of information comes up either place. And so based on grad school, since I was in psych, I tend to use PsycInfo, but you could use either one. Okay, so the library, what I learned very recently, as in last week, looks very different. The website's very different than the last time I went there. So now when you go to the library page, you go to subject guides, and you'll see a list of a lot of different subjects, and you can scroll down until you get to social science. And then if you click on education, you'll get to ERIC, or you'll get to a number of things, one of which is ERIC. And if you click on psychology, you'll get to a number of things, one of which is PsycInfo. So for psychology, it will look like this. And basically, the only thing I use is PsycInfo. I've never even really looked at PsycTest. That's a bit newer, at least new to me. PsycArticles used to be something unique in that it had full text when other ones didn't. Now it is pretty much the same thing that you can get in PsycInfo. So I don't really find any time that I go to PsycArticles. So pretty much I just go to PsycInfo from here. And then in PsycInfo, you are going to get to a search page. So search by keywords. So for example, when you click on PsycInfo, it will take you to this search page. It takes you to the advanced search. There is a basic search. I always use this one, and it seems to default to this one. Here you can type in your search terms. You can add rows. Can you guys see if I move my mouse? Anyone? No?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, great. Thank you. Okay, so you can do things like say, and if you drop down this list, it will say or, and it will say not. And so you can add extra rows and make your searches a little more complex. The one that Natalie put in here was positive youth development and elementary. And she has it in anywhere. So this, if you drop this down, you got a lot of other choices, which I'll talk more about in a minute. And she listed it as peer reviewed and all dates. So you can see that you can refine here if you want, but there's lots of chances after you hit search to be able to refine even more. So if we hit search, then we're going to get a list of publications like this. And I love that this publication that this page, this screenshot that she gave me, the second article is Kendra Lewis. Yay. That came up. So that was neat. So you can see that positive youth development in elementary had 20,000 results. It's sorted by relevance. So you can change how that's sorted. I sometimes do it by date. But with relevance, often I find that you get both here and Google Scholar, which I'll talk about later, is that what tends to come up in the top hits often are things that have been cited a lot. So sometimes I like the relevance. And so you can narrow your results here with different source types and the language. And Natalie made a little video, so you'll see more options for how to narrow in a little bit. I was going to walk through these screenshots first and then show you the video she created to walk you through doing a search. So this is going to give you, sorry, I'll go back a minute. These are going to give you your list of publications. From there, you can usually get to full text. Not everything has a full text option. But to do that, then you're going to click on preview. So for each one of these, there's a little preview button here that you can click and it will provide the abstract for you. And then what you'll also see is this UCD links. And so if you click on this, it will take you to a new page that will have a link usually to full text if that's available. And again, it's not always. Oftentimes, maybe this isn't something that is good to advertise. I have no idea. If the full text isn't available, like it's a journal that UC Davis does not have access to a full text, and I've also been getting a lot of hits that make sense for what I'm looking for. I'll often skip those because I feel like those are in journal articles that are in journals that likely don't have kind of the same status as the journals that we often cite from. And so I don't usually dig really far to find the full text, but you can always there might be ways through the library to get the full text if it's something that's really relevant to what you're doing, or you can try doing searches. If I can't find the full text, I guess I do sometimes do a little bit of searching. So I'll copy the name of the title of the article and I'll paste it within quotes into Google. And sometimes that will give me other places like researchgate.net or somebody's private website that has the full text. I have like a little drop down. Did someone ask a question? It went away. I saw something pop up and then it went away. So if there's a question, maybe someone can ping it or something. Please feel free to interrupt me or write questions.
No, you're good, Carly.
What?
You're good.
Okay, thanks. So the way that it works is that if I click on that Sage Complete, it will usually go to the publisher's website, and then I can click on the download PDF and I will get the article to download or print. And this is going to be if you're logged into the library system, this should work fine. It will help if you have the VPN. I don't know if you have to have the VPN to do it. I usually, whenever I'm going to do a search, will connect first. And again, I'm throwing that out without explaining it, but I will explain it in a little bit. Okay, so this is the video that she recorded using Zoom. And so she's just taking you through what it looks like to do the search. So this is the search she did that I showed you the screenshots. You can see there's a lot more ways down below to narrow it. And then over here, you can narrow the results even more. So if you want full text or peer-reviewed, scholarly journals, and there's a whole list of things here. You can change the dates if you want something more relevant, more recent, and it will update those results for you. I see the chat now. So the documents are usually free if they know that you're coming from UC. So that goes back again to the VPN. Oh, was that done? I think I clicked something. Okay. So I can stop for a second if anyone had questions about that. Okay. So then the ERIC search page is going to look really similar. So if you click on education, you'll get these options. And you can see even when you click on education, you still get PsycInfo as one of the options, but you get ERIC here. And if you click on that, you end up in a screen that looks really similar. So if you know, so everything I just said about PsycInfo is going to apply to ERIC. I did try doing a search in PsycInfo and ERIC, and I got the exact same number of hits. So I don't, but in the past, I know I've gotten slightly different results before. So it could be that they're more aligned now, or that I just searched for something that happened to be the same. So this is a live link that if you want to download the presentation, you can click on this. There's the library provides a lot of guides. So she pasted a few here. This is 5 steps to better library research. So it looks like it's like a worksheet to kind of get you started. There's also a comparisons chart about academic versus popular articles. And then there's citation styles too, so that, you know, you can look up APA formatting and style if you want. So the links to all of these is under this live link of guides and tutorials. Okay, so the VPN that I keep talking about. So current UC Davis students, faculty, employees may access our licensed resources from off campus with a valid ID. So I think if there's anyone new on the line who doesn't know, I believe, and please correct me if someone knows something different, but everyone can sign up for a UC Davis email in addition to the UC A&R emails, so that you can have, I think it makes access to things like this easier if you use your Davis one. But I said, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then, so my understanding is if you use your UC A&R one, you might not get the same access as you would if you use your UC Davis one. And then there's a general library catalog and Melville catalog. This is often like books and things that anyone can use because you're not getting access to them. It's just showing what's in the library as opposed to getting full text. So I don't usually use that often because books will show up under PsycInfo also. So connecting from off campus, this is pretty much what I think we all do, since I often work remotely also. So what there is there's this VPN client called Pulse Secure, and it's a little program that needs to be downloaded and installed on your computer. and you can go to this link, which will give you the link to the program to download and have an installation guide. And what that's going to do is it's going to install something. So I think she's on a Mac. For me, on a PC, it shows up kind of at the bottom in my little taskbar where the clock is. On a Mac, I guess it's up here. But you'll get, it will, once you install it, you'll get a little icon that looks like this, whether you're in Mac or PC. And then you click on, when you click on it, you get these options. You go to UCD Library VPN, and then you click connect. So whenever I'm going to do a web search, if I'm not on campus, I first do this before I get into the library, before I, do a Google Scholar search, whatever I'm going to do, I connect to this, and that allows me much more access to all of the full text documents, because it gives me access to everything that UC Davis has a license for. I do forget often enough, even though I just made it sound like I do it every time. I do forget all the time. And what happens is I'll click on a link for full text and it will say, here, you can buy this for $35. And then I say, oh, I didn't connect to the VPN. And I go over to my VPN and I connect it. And then I reload the page and it says, here, you can freely download it. So it's really easy to do after the fact also. One note is if you have Windows, what's the current Windows? I don't even remember. If you have the current Windows that I think that's after Windows 10, I'm not sure what I have. Sorry, totally blinking. The most recent Windows program does it a little bit differently, where I just hit the menu button and type VPN and it shows up as a setting basically. And I click connect to VPN. So it looks different for that. But I'm assuming that I figured out how to do it, I think, from the help guide that I showed on the last slide, or that the link has to the last slide. So it was really easy. And I used to use this OpenPulse Secure, and I feel like they're both very easy to figure out. So that's just to let you know, it might look different depending on what version of Windows you have. And then once you're connected, this is what your icon will look like. So that shows you that you're connected. On Windows, it's like a straight up arrow instead of this angled arrow. Again, that's in all but the newest version of Windows. This is what it will look like. Okay, so then this is probably how I do most of my searching, is Google Scholar through the VPN. Or not through it, but connecting to the VPN and then using Google Scholar. So, and I do use the library sometimes still, but through Google Scholar, you can access journal articles and bypass searching the library system. And you can still download articles straight from the publisher this way. So in some cases, it makes it access links to the full text easier. So for example, let me get rid of my chat thing. So when I search for something here, I get this like PDF. Well, this isn't a good example. This is a better example. I should have circled this one. This is somebody's personal website, which is a great way to do it, to find it, because you don't need the VPN or anything. But here, for example, it's saying sagepub.com full view. So this is because I'm connected through the library. Like using the VPN. It will show me this option. One other note is that when you search in Google Scholar, it will have something here that will say like all something versions. So in this case, 16 versions, 10 versions. So when I search, if I don't see like a link to the full text, then I will click on all versions, and sometimes, and often, I guess, well, maybe half the time, there's a different version that I can download the full text, either from someone's personal website or through the publisher like this. So this is useful to see. And pointing out this one reminds me. So what I see here is that this article in American Psychologist, it's saying that if I click on this title, so ignoring for a minute that someone has personally posted it, let's assume that wasn't there. What you'll get, even if you're in the VPN, you'll see this, and this tells you where it's directing you to. So it's going to direct you to APA. Right here, it's directing you to Sage. We know, like we just saw earlier, Sage, you can get the full text really easily. For some reason, when it takes you to APA, even though Davis has full access to all of the full text of APA, the VPN doesn't work. So when you click through there, even if you're connected to the VPN, it will still say you need to pay for the article. So in those cases, if it isn't posted somewhere freely available, like someone's personal website, and it's through APA, then I go back to the library system. So at that point, I would log into the library website, just library.ucdavis.edu. And what I do is I copy the title of the article, I put it in quotes, and I just discovered this in this newly redesigned library that when I go to the website, there's a search box right there without going to PsycInfo or anything. I pasted in the title in quotes. I should have done a screenshot of this, and it took me straight to the link for that article and the link to the full text for free. So the exception is if it's an APA article, then you're going to have to leave Google Scholar and go back to the library. Does that all make sense? I should have had that all written out here, but I missed that in the slides. Okay, so let's see. So this is her video on searching Google Scholar, and there aren't as many refinement options, but it is still a pretty easy way to get to the articles. And yes, so what she's showing you is that also a lot of the pages let you pull the APA citation. And then here she's showing you it lists all the references with UC links to be able to get to those full text articles also, which is very nice. So it redirected to the UC Davis library and a link to the full text. And in this case, I was really surprised to see this. This is actually a book. I hadn't noticed that these had been digitized. So you can actually download specific chapters or the entire book. But it looks like the entire book you only get for 21 days. But I thought that was really nice. I hadn't seen that before.
So Kali,
Yeah.
that's great. And we have a question from Marcel in the chat. Can you
Yes. What do you mean by topics, Marcel?
Can you hear me if I talk on my phone?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just trying to clarify in my brain, where I would start depending on what I was doing. I just want to make sure I understand. If I want to go do a lit search on mindfulness studies in adolescence, I would go to the UC Davis library, type that in to the PsycInfo, and see what comes up. If I know that there's an exact article and I want to get Kendra's paper and I have the reference, I would type that into Google Scholar and find it directly. Is that kind of how I would decide which way to go?
No, you can do either of those in either Google Scholar or the library. So if I have an exact title, then you can either put it, I always put it in quotes, and I can do it either in Google Scholar or in the library. It works in both places. And if I wanted to do mindfulness in adolescents, you can do that in both places. So in the library, it has more of this kind of advanced search options where you can say mindfulness and then and a different line put adolescent, or you can do mindfulness and just search that and then have all of these options to narrow it down. And so sometimes if I know it's going to be a really big search, sometimes then that's often a decision point for me. Like if I'm going to search for something and I know there's going to be so many hits to it and it's going to be really hard to figure out what I really want from it, then I'll often do the library search because there's many more options to narrow that down. But you'll get a lot of the same hits either way, through Google Scholar or through the library. I think because Google Scholar, I usually have a browser open. Google Scholar feels really easy to me, so it's often my first search is Google Scholar, and then if that's overwhelming or something, then I'll switch over to the library. Does that?
It's more personal preference then.
Yeah, it is. Right. So yes, exactly. I would say try both and see what you like best. I would try both a couple of for the first few times, that the next few times you do searches, I would just try both and see what you like better in terms of the hits. With Google Scholar, it sorts very strongly with like the papers that have been referenced more often at the very top. And so if I'm like trying to get just like really popular hits, then sometimes Google Scholar is better. So I think it's a combination of personal preference and just getting to know what you get in your searches that kind of leads you to some intuition of which one seems best for your particular situation at that time.
Okay. And then I missed it. Can you go back to the slide where you said we need to install the VPN client?
Yeah.
There was a link. Didn't get it written down this time.
Oh, I'm going to send, I don't think the actual, let's see. So the link here, I will send this out and you can just click on this link yourself, but it looks like it's library.ucdavis.edu/service/connect-from-off-campus.
Okay, so if I go to the library page, I'll be able to find it through there.
Yeah, I think you could even do a Google search that said UC Davis VPN client library, and I think you would find it there also.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions? I like questions. Okay, so some notes about searches, things that I do. So when I go and do a search, so this is the search that Natalie did, is she did positive youth development anywhere. And she got 8,000 results doing that. So 8,000 results is a lot. And there are ways to narrow it, as I said, like as I showed in the other, in the video where she showed they're going to be this whole list of things you can narrow. And one of the things I forgot to do a screenshot of, now that I remember it, is that one of the narrow things is that you can also select specific journals. So it will say journals, you click on it, and it will give you a list that's sorted by the journals that have the most hits. So for example, you can narrow this down by clicking on journals. My guess is that, there might be a lot of developmental psych, and maybe there's a lot of journal of extension, and so you could just select those journals to narrow that down is one option. Another option is you can search within these results. So you can say, oh, that's a lot. I'm going to add some search terms within these 8,000 that I already have. But usually when I get this kind of result, or if I know I'm going to get this kind of result, I will change this in anywhere part. And I'll start with, well, first I'll start with putting it in quotes. So if you write positive youth development in quotes, the program's going to put these parentheses around it too. So this is now already going to put it from 8,000 to less than 2,000, because it's saying positive youth development has to be a complete phrase. When you don't put the quotes on, then you're going to get hits that just say youth development, that say positive development. So this is saying you have to have this exact quote or phrase. So that's the first thing that I will do. I'll rarely do a search without the quotes, either in PsycInfo or in Google Scholar. It works the same in both of those. Then if that's still more results than I feel like I can kind of make sense of, then I'll go to this anywhere box and I'll say, okay, just tell me in the abstract. So my thought is that in the abstract is where they put the most relevant information for an article. So if I know that I want it to be about adolescence, or that I want it to be a longitudinal study, or something like that, then I'll say those words have to be in the abstract. So as you saw earlier, you can have multiple lines like this. So you could say positive youth development can be anywhere, but the word longitudinal needs to be in the abstract. So you don't have to have the same, for each line, you can specify something different. And I rarely do searches anywhere. I usually start with the abstract. As you can see here, it didn't make a huge difference. It cut 400. Really, the huge difference is the quotes for positive youth development. In other searches, the difference between quotes and no quotes isn't very big, but the difference between anywhere and abstract is big. And then if this is still too much, then I will sometimes search just in the document title, and you can see that cut it in half. I feel like there's not a big qualitative difference between going from the anywhere to abstract. I feel like that's really going to clean things up and give me what I'm looking for. I feel like going from abstract to title, there I often wonder whether I'm losing important information or not. And so I will usually compare what I'm getting from abstract to what I'm getting in title. Times that I would use title is, I don't know, let me think. I would use title if I wanted to find an intervention. I think that most people will say intervention in their title if it's an intervention. So if I'm really interested in that, then, and I don't care about anything else, then maybe I would do a title search for the word intervention. Oftentimes, if it's something like mindfulness, which I know is going to show up in tons of different places, I would do that in the title, because I don't really want, the difference is that sometimes I want to know just what people have done. Like, what have people correlated with mindfulness? Like, what studies have they put it in? That's an abstract. That's like, it's just a main variable in the study. But the study could be about anything. The study could be about dieting. It could be about sleep. It could be about all these different topics. And mindfulness might have been a correlate of it, or it might have been a manipulation or an intervention. And I'm just trying to see in general, what are people doing with mindfulness? So in that case, I think an abstract, I would use abstract for that one. if instead I want to know, what do we really know about mindfulness? I want people whose primary interest is they want to understand what mindfulness is. In that case, I would put it in a title, because I don't want to study on sleep. I want to study where the total focus of the paper is mindfulness. Does that make sense as a difference between abstract and title? I will take that as a yes. I was going to do another example just in case, because I feel like it's a bit abstract. So I do self-esteem research a lot, and it comes up a lot with this, because self-esteem is a scale that people put into studies all the time. And so there could be an intervention to try to get kids to do more sports after school, and they'll say, and it increased self-esteem. And there could be a study that was looking at stress and coping, and say, like, people with high self-esteem are better with stress, like have better stress responses, and it's just, it will show up in the abstract over and over again in this very long list of, we improved well-being, which is these 10 things, including self-esteem. And, and then it's just really something they threw in there. It has a very minor role in the paper. And so if I really wanted to know, what interventions were done on self-esteem, I would not do that as the abstract. I would do that in the title, because I want it to be that they focused on self-esteem. So that's another example of that distinction. And I guess it makes me think, another thing I do when I do searches is I will look at, say, like the first 10 hits. And if I don't find any of those relevant to what I'm doing, then I know it's time to change my search. Because those are supposed to be the most relevant things. And so if in the first set that it isn't relevant to what I'm doing, then I'm not doing the right search. So I don't go through pages and pages not finding a single article that's relevant to me. The other thing I do is that maybe in the first 10, there's only one article that was relevant. So I will go through that article. I'll look at that article title, I'll look at the abstract, and I'll see what terms they're using and try to use those terms as my search terms to try to use that information to clarify what it is that I'm searching for. Okay, let's see. So then the other thing I wanted to show is that in Google Scholar, and now that I've seen, again, clearly I don't use the library as often anymore. It looks like they do the same thing with the cited by, but I've really only done this in Google Scholar. So I search for positive youth development in quotes, and I get this hit, and I think, oh, this is, I'm interested in this article, but it's from 2000. That's kind of a while ago. I want to know what people have done since then. And, is there a lot of newer things? This would be, like, imagine this was like an intervention. So if I saw this intervention from 2000, I might think, oh, I wonder if people have improved on the intervention, or if they've done it, maybe this is like a small study that was just a pilot, or maybe it was with a particular sample, and I want to know, have people that then tried this in other samples? Maybe this was in kids, have they tried it in adolescents? So what I would do in that case is I would go to this cited by link. So this is a live link, and you click on that, and what it's going to do is list all the articles that have cited that one. In this case, there's a lot. There won't always be this many. This was 2,500. But this will tell me now what it is that people have been doing since then. So this is people who have cited this article. So if somebody is going to do a replication of that intervention, or is going to try it in adolescents or something like that, they're going to cite that article. So in this case, this is a lot. I'll still scroll through like the first 10 and see what they're like. But then you can also click this search within citing articles. And then, so if I click on this, I can type a new search term in here, like I could type intervention in here, and then it would pull up only the articles that cited that original article that also had the keyword intervention. So that's a way to kind of to learn more about a field of research, to be able to see kind of if you can find this article that really like launched a field, then looking at who cited it can be useful. You will get a lot of things that are not, like positive psychology is not going to be probably what you're looking at, but you know, character strengths and virtues might be. So that's the citing within articles. Okay, so before I move on to a totally different resource, I want to stop and see if there's other questions. Yeah, I don't think I see anything in the chat. Okay. Just wait a minute in case anyone's muted. Okay, so I'm not sure how many of you have heard of What Works Clearinghouse. I think it is a great resource. And so I wanted to add this to the options for literature searches. It's a different type of search. So the What Works Clearinghouse, which is often referred to as WWC, it's from the National Department of Education. It is they review existing research on different programs, products, practices, and policies in education. So they have a team of expert reviewers that goes through, a lot of it is interventions that have been done, and evaluates the quality of them. And so the goal is to provide educators with information they need to make evidence-based decisions. So they focus on the results from high-quality research to answer the question, what works in education? So this is also a great resource. It's a great resource for finding evidence-based information. So if you're trying to find, you know, a literacy program, you can go to What Works Clearinghouse and see what works to increase literacy in elementary school students, for example. But it's also, they've worked really hard. They've been doing a lot of revamping of their website, and they're trying to make it very accessible, not just for researchers and, you know, research practitioners, but also for, you know, school personnel. And so it's a great resource to use when working with stakeholders also, because it's a lot of information that they might be interested in, I think, presented in a way that is often very interpretable. So what you can do is, usually what I do is I start with the topics. So you can see that there's a bunch of topics here. Although I feel like, I wonder if they changed this. I feel like there used to be a non-cognitive one, which I don't see right now. Maybe it falls under behavior, although a lot of behavior is like antisocial behavior, but maybe it's falling under there. I know that I've done searches just for non-cognitive. But you can see that there's subject-specific things, there's age-specific, and things like English language learners. So that's one way to start, is to start with a topic that you're interested in. You can also do more general searches. So you could search for character development, for example, and it will pull up studies of character development. So these slides are taken from their website. So what they do is review the evidence, which is basically what I said. They're not ranking, evaluating, or endorsing any, but they do provide feedback of the studies, and they rate them. There's this they'll rate them as meeting, they have their own set of standards of what is needed in order to have like strong evidence of an impact. So for an intervention, you need to, in order to meet What Works Clearinghouse standards without reservation, this is like kind of a label they give, then you need to have like no exclusion criteria, maybe. I'm not sure. You need to have like very clear, like kind of representativeness, I think, of the study. I'm not remembering that exactly right. But you also have to have very good randomization. So a lot of times when we do interventions, we randomly assign our participants, we give them an intervention, and then we find out that our intervention group or our control group was higher or lower on something than the other group. So our randomization failed. So in order to meet What Works Clearinghouse standards without reservation, you have to have no baseline differences greater than a standard effect size of 0.2. There is, I might not have that statistic quite right. I think it's 0.2. Then you can meet What Works Clearinghouse standards with reservation if you have a difference that's between like 0.2 and 0.4, I believe, and you're able to control for that in your analyses so that you're kind of adjusting for that. So what you'll see when you search for the effectiveness of interventions is you'll see that some are meet What Works Clearinghouse with reservation, some without reservation, and some that don't meet it at all. So on their website, they will still review articles that don't meet the standards, and they'll just usually say a lot less about it. Like this, it might say something like, this is not reviewed because it has this limitation. And maybe that's all the information that you get, but it's still useful information. Okay, and then this is just saying that they have hundreds of trained and certified reviewers that rate whether standard studies meet standardized standards and then summarize those results that do meet the standards. So that's what I was saying about if they don't, it will just say this was not reviewed because it has this limitation. And I'll go into what those summaries look like a little bit. They have 4 different primary things that you can look up. You can look up intervention reports, single study reviews, quick reviews, and practice guides. So practice guides is where I think that it might be very useful working with stakeholders and in our own jobs. The intervention reports will often have multiple interventions in it. So they'll say like, we want to know whether mindfulness is effective at helping students test anxiety, for example. And Marcel, you've totally like primed me now. Every example is mindfulness. So an intervention report is going to have all the studies that they found in which they did a mindfulness intervention with an outcome on test anxiety. Whereas a single study review is just going to be a single intervention. So that's the difference between those. And then the quick reviews just have a little bit of an overview. And I'm not sure exactly what's in those. So, all right. This is going to be redundant. So intervention reports a summary of the highest quality research. And sorry, I'm going to be very redundant here in these slides. The practice guide, this I haven't really said. So the practice guide is recommendations for educators to address challenges in their classrooms and schools. It's based on reviews of the research experience of practitioners and the expert opinions of panel of nationally recognized experts. So this one does have a lot of opinions in it. And then the reviews of the individual studies. And one of the things is if you find, like, if you search for an individual study, it will link you to other studies that have more information. Okay, so an intervention report. What this will look like is a report like this. You can see like the table of contents here. It will tell you about what the intervention is like, what research has been done, whether it's effective, the references they have. And then because this is usually a set of studies that have looked at this intervention, then you can look at they'll also include the details for each individual study and what they found. And what I like better than this full report usually is this snapshot that comes along with it. And so this is what I think is very easy to share with others. So what you see here is that you get this description of what the intervention is, and you can download that full report that I just showed you. But you can very quickly see across all the studies what the demographics look like of who's been looked at. So you can see whether this matches, whether this is going to be relevant to a sample you're considering. You can see that there were 6 studies that were eligible for review. So this means it had to meet either with or without standard reservations. It had to meet those qualifications. And 4 of them met standards out of the 6 reviewed studies. And down here, you can see what outcomes they looked at. So the intervention is knowledge is power. And then the 6 studies fell into one of these 3 categories. It tells you how effective it is using pluses and minuses. It tells you what grades they looked at and how much improvement there is. And so these snapshots are great for if you're just trying to look for different kinds of interventions that might be useful for a particular topic. Then, right, because you can look at you can search for specific domains and you can see what interventions they had and what the evidence is. This would be really easy to print out and share with stakeholders or to send links to them. So I really like these snapshots. And then these practice guides are also very useful. So this example practice guide, Preventing Dropout in Secondary Schools. So it has recommendations in it, and it gives the background about the information. And what it will do is have within this report, you get this type of practice guide here. And this will give you this part of you can see this on the website, and you can see the recommendations, and it will say what they've recommended. So here they are providing 4 different recommendations. They tell you what level the evidence is. So for example, if I was looking at this, I might say, okay, this is the strong evidence. So if I was going to do just one thing, or I was going to recommend to one of my stakeholders to do one thing, I would probably focus on this. And then if there's more resources available, you could look at these kind of moderate evidence or even the minimal evidence, or maybe you want to see whether you can improve on it or generalize to it. And you can say, I'm going to take the minimal evidence one and see if I can contribute to that literature so we know whether this really matters or not, because there's not enough evidence to do this. So the evidence, this minimal, moderate, strong evidence is going to be based on how many studies have done it, how I believe how diverse the samples are, and how many studies, how diverse, the quality of the studies. So it could be that there's been minimal evidence, could be that there's been a lot of studies, but the quality of them aren't very good. They're not going to give that strong evidence just because a lot of people have done poorly controlled studies, for example. And then on the website, you can click details and panel, and it will give more information. There's a video that is in that I won't show because it's 6 minutes. It's at the very last slide that you can watch on your own when we send this out, since I'm running out of time. And then there's the review of individual studies, which is just you can put in different search terms and find different, what you're looking for in the individual studies. And then this is the 6-minute video that I won't show, but what it does is it goes over a lot of what I said, but it also walks you through going through their website. And they have lots of other videos too. As I said, they've been working really hard to make their website very accessible. And so there's a lot of videos that give you instructions about how to do everything. So that is all that I have. I'm happy to answer any other questions. And when I get off here, I will send it to Charles to distribute.
Great. Any questions?
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Was that Marcel?
Yes.
Kali, she was the one who requested this, so
Oh, good. I'm glad that you requested it. And
I am too, actually.
Good.
I think at one point there was like about 16 or 17 folks that were listening, and again, because of the annual evaluation, I
Right.
think the participation has been affected. But we really thank you for this. This is
Sure.
a lot of good information.
Good. I'm glad. And you can always feel free to email me any questions, like if you're having trouble with the search or anything. I'm happy to try to brainstorm search terms. Sometimes it's helpful to just, people have different ways of thinking. So in case, you're welcome to email me and ask questions or give me a call.
Great, great. Any other questions, group? If not, I think that will be the wrap up. I just wanted the group to know that for next month, we will not have a webinar, but we do encourage you to go to the Western WRLF, the Western Regional Leaders Forum, and then we will resume in February. And if you have any questions or about webinar, go ahead and send me an email. And as soon as Kali sends me the information, I will upload everything to our association site. Kali, I'll also give you the link
Okay.
for our association. So if you wanted to share it with anybody at all, say,
Okay.
or any of your students or so forth. So it'll be living there permanently.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you.
Oh, and I have a message from Kendra that says she'll load it onto her resource page
Great,
too.
great. And we'll give her a hard
Okay.
time because she was supposed to help you.
Oh, it was fine. No problem. I had agreed.
Have a good
So.
rest of your Thursday, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Kali.
Sure.
Again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.